And we're live. Hello, and welcome to this live about 3 unusual ways to overcome your public speaking nerves. For the next 10 minutes or so, I'm going to discuss what these 3 methods are and how you can apply them before you're delivering a presentation, a speech, making a video, or whatever form of public speaking makes you nervous. Just before I get into that, I want to remind you that if you are watching this live, or even if you're watching it as a repeat, please put some questions or anything that you want to say into the chat. I'll be able to see it. I'll be able to bring it up in real time and answer it. And if you're watching this as a repeat, I'll still go back and look at the questions and I'll answer them for you in the chat, or they might even inspire future videos. So make sure you're using the chat if you want, and let me know that you're out there, that you're watching this, that you're enjoying it, that you're hating it. You can heckle me. I do not mind. Just let me know that you are out there. But going back to our topic of today, 3 unusual ways to overcome public speaking nerves. I think we've all heard lots of different pieces of advice on how to overcome speaking nerves. We've heard, oh, don't view it as being anxious and nervous, view it as you being excited. That'll make sense. And that can work. That can work. Or some people say, don't think about you, think about the audience. And they give you pieces of advice like this. And all of them have their merits and can be effective. But today, I want to focus more on some unusual ways you can overcome speaking nerves, which I've found to be very effective. And the first one is to burn off the tension. Burn off the tension. You see, when we get nervous about anything, our body tends to tense up, doesn't it? You feel tighter. I mean, your breathing is a little bit more restricted. Your muscles feel a little bit on edge. You feel a little bit jittery. And I think we can learn how to deal with that tension from the world of combat sports. Whether it be boxing or mixed martial arts like the UFC, fighters have surely the scariest job ahead of them. The idea of going into a ring or going into an octagon and another man or another woman trying to kill you. I think that would make anyone nervous. So how do they deal with that tension? Well, they deal with it by doing this in the back before they go out. They warm up, don't they? They actually exert themselves. They exercise a little. They sweat a little. And what that does, having a little bit of exercise, getting the body moving, using the different muscles, is it actually releases, calms the muscles down and releases that tension. And this is something which I do as well before speaking. I'm not shadow boxing in the back, but what I do like to do is I like to exercise before. I find going to the gym before a big presentation is fantastic. Because when you're working your muscles or when you're doing all this kind of stuff, you're relaxing your body more because it's becoming a bit fatigued. Likewise, going for a run can be very good, or even just a brisk walk can be very good for just exercising the body, sort of burning off that tension that you've built up and allowing you to feel more relaxed going into the presentation. So give it a try, honestly, whether it be just a brisk walk, going to the gym, or doing any form of exercise. Do something to release that tension that is built up in your body, and you will feel so much better when you go into your presentation. Okay, so moving on to the second way in which you can, calm down those nerves that you may have is this. It's to prepare for the worst. I think there's a few guarantees in life. 1, taxes. 2, death. And 3, things going wrong in presentations. And a lot of people, they develop a fear and anxiety because they're so worried about what they will do if something goes wrong. What they will do if the PowerPoint goes down. What they will do if the audience isn't paying attention, what they will do if they freeze when they're speaking. And I generally do think that if we can prepare for these what ifs, we will feel so much more confident going into presentations. I'll give you an example. Before I tried stand-up comedy, I was very concerned that my 5-minute comedy sketch would get no laughs. I think anyone who's designed a presentation which has some humor in it has this fear. What if I say my joke? What if I say my line and crickets, right? What would you do in that particular case? And so one way I became more comfortable with that fear, with that concern, was actually deciding what I would do if I did get no laughs. What would I do if I got no laughs? And I came to the conclusion that there was only one thing to do: carry on. And you know what? The particular presentation I'm talking about here, the stand-up, it did go well. I did get laughs, but there have been others where I do get no laughs, and I just carry on and no one dies. It's absolutely fine. And me just having that knowledge that, yeah, I can just carry on here actually helped me a lot. Likewise, I've had other clients who have a fear about freezing on stage. But what we've done is we've decided how they will react when they do freeze. So if the freeze comes, some of my clients like to take a drink. And that extra few seconds where they're taking a sip gives them a chance to get back on track, regain their composure, and so forth. So what I'd recommend you doing is maybe write down your 5 biggest fears. Maybe it's the PowerPoint going down, the audience not engaging, freezing, whatever it may be. Write that down on one side of a paper. And then on the other side, write down your 5 solutions, i.e. what you will do if these bad things happen. And once you have decided what your next step's going to be, you'll find that you feel less anxious about freezing on stage, about the audience not engaging, about the PowerPoint going down, because you know your next step. And this is why preparing for the worst is very, very effective for calming down those speaking nerves. Again, if you have any questions right now about what we've been covering so far, or your own suggestions on how to overcome speaking nerves, do type them into the chat, whether you be on YouTube or on LinkedIn. Even if it's not live, I'll see them, I'll come back to them, and we'll interact with them as well. But moving on, so we've talked about burning off that tension, preparing for the worst. The third and final unusual way to overcome speaking nerves is this. It's to make friends beforehand. Make friends beforehand. Often when I go to events and there's a speaker, I see the speaker doing this. They stand in the corner while their audience is filtering in the room, and they make no effort to interact with the audience in any way. They just stand over here. And that's probably the worst thing you can do, because you are creating a divide between audience and speaker. What you want to do is, as the speaker, go and meet the audience. Be part of their group. Make friends with them. Get to know them. Ask them where they've traveled from, what they like to do, what they're hoping to gain from the session today. Have some small talk with them. And there are 2 benefits to doing this. Number 1, it helps you create a little bit of a bond with the audience, right? So then you can almost have some friends before you actually start speaking. And then number 2, it makes you realize that they are just people like you. And I think in our minds before presentations, we sort of build up in our head of who the audience is going to be. They're going to be these really crooked-faced, unimpressed people who are going to be very difficult to engage with. But when we actually speak to them, we realize they're just normal people, and that we are actually just like them too, and it's not going to be as bad as we think. I experienced this myself recently, and I was down in London doing a public speaking training program for some managers. Didn't know any of them, never came in contact with them before. And one of the things I did to try and get on their side, because with every public speaking course, there's always a level of this skepticism, what's he going to teach me? Why do I need to do this? Blah, 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 blah. So what I decided to do is the day before the presentation, they were doing like a sort of team dinner thing. So I made an effort to be there for that, to have dinner with them, to get to know them so they could get to know me, so I could have some allies for the workshop the next day. And it worked out really well because, look, the company even gave me a mug because they enjoyed the presentation so much. Well, they didn't give it for that, but you get the point. They really enjoyed it. They're looking forward to the next sessions we've got coming up. And I think that is strongly because of the effort I made to get to know them beforehand. So get to know your audience when they're sitting in front of you. Even if it's on Zoom, go around the different tiles, ask people, where are you zooming in from today? What are you hoping to gain from the session? Talk to them, interact with them. Don't stand in the speaker corner like this, like you're being told off for being bad. So those are 3 different ways you can overcome your speaking nerves. Perhaps you've not heard of them before. I'd love to hear your reaction in the chat. Type in, if you've heard of these, if you would add any other suggestions, what's worked for you. If you've got questions, of course, you can put them in there as well. But just to recap quickly, we've got burn off the tension as our first idea. Just do something to move the body, to get rid of that tension a little bit. Second, we've got to, of course, prepare for the worst. If you've got a big fear of something happening in the presentation, ask yourself, what would I do if that happened? And then you'll find you'll become a lot more confident if it does happen, because you'll know your next step. And then third and finally, we just discussed making friends with the audience before the presentation, talking to them, making an effort with them before you get up and speak. I hope you found this enjoyable today. If you are wanting to improve your speaking skills fast, the best way to do that is through coaching. I've got a one-to-one public speaking coaching program. It's called the Public Speaking Accelerator. And basically, it will take you from being maybe nervous, anxious, maybe a bit boring, to confident, engaging, and compelling in just 3 months. It's a mix of me teaching you skills based on what you want to learn, but also giving you a chance to practice so that I can give you feedback on the presentation too. So if that's something which is of interest, send me a message on LinkedIn or leave me a comment on YouTube or email me at, I'll put my email in the chat actually. It's kyle@confidencebydesign.co.uk. Oh, and we have a question in the chat from Kasha. I've just noticed that. Apologies. Have you heard about the power pose? Is it good to gain confidence before the presentation? It can be very, very good. I think there was a study by Amy Cuddy. She did a whole TED talk on how power posing like this can elevate your testosterone and therefore make you feel more confident. And I think there is something to it, because if you are presenting and beforehand you stand like this, you kind of shrink into yourself, that's going to have an effect, Kasha, on how you are speaking later on. So often the mind follows the body. So if we can do a power pose or something like this, it can help us feel a bit more confident going into that presentation for sure. So thank you very much for your question there. That was a really good one to end on. And yes, I will type my email in the chat for anyone who's interested in that training I mentioned. But above all, I hope this has helped today. Next week, I'm going to do another live, and we're going to talk about stories that sell. Stories that sell. How you can tell a story to get the audience on your side. So tune into that. It's going to be at 12 noon BST, British Summer Time. And you can always get the recording if that is not a convenient time zone for you. But I wish you a fantastic day ahead. I hope you found that useful, and I hope now you know how to overcome your speaking nerves. Until next time.